Hi there, welcome back to Animation Teacher. So in the final part of our character building videos, we're going to discuss how the node view or the network view is set up in terms of our rigging. So I'm just going to open up the Franco build. Now this has been updated. As you can see, I've added some flourishes to the Franco build. I've even added a 3/4 view, and if you look closely, I've also added some shoes. Anyway, what we're going to do with this rig now is I'm going to show you how I've broken it down. So we won't need to see too much of all this stuff, so I'm going to hide it aside. And we actually don't need to see too much of our build as well. What's important in this video is that we see a lot of the node view or the network view. So here we are in the top of the Franco build group. If we go inside, you'll see 4 groupings. This grouping here, if I highlight it, you'll see is the face grouping. This grouping here is the head grouping. This grouping here is the lower torso grouping. I should actually move this over here. And this grouping here is the upper torso grouping. Here. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is cutters. Now, in order to do a cutter, it's quite simple actually. All you have to do is pull it up in the node view here. Everything's alphabetical. And here's the cutter. I'm going to delete this one so we can see how to build it. So what you'll notice is the eye white is in front of the pupil. If we pull in the cutter, what we want to do essentially is tell the cutter what needs to be cut. In this case, it's the pupil. So you want to slide in the cutter by holding Alt and sliding it in to the pupil. Make sure the pupil hits this square with the dot on it. That dot basically tells the cutter what needs to be cut. So in this case, it's the pupil. What we want to use to cut that is the eye white. Now I'm going to run a line to the cutter using the eye white, and you'll see what it does. It cuts away the pupil. Now you'll notice that it's inverted, so we'll actually have to hit the yellow box and hit invert, and it'll bring it back like that. Now the eye white, as you can see, cuts away the pupil quite nicely. However, we don't actually see the eye white, so we have to run another line behind this connection here. You can just put it right behind there, and now you can see the eye white. We did the exact same thing over here with his left eye. So you can see that. And what you'll notice with the hierarchy set up here is all the things at the bottom are at the lowest end of the food chain. And as we parent up, which is to say to hit B to parent up to our peg, if I hit B again, it's going to go to this connection here, which controls the whole eye. So actually the eyelid controls the whole eye. And then if we parent up again, it's going to control the eye and the eyebrow. And if I parent up again, it's going to control both eyes. And finally, if I parent up again, it's going to control the face. So the hierarchy works by pressing B upwards, and you want to make sure that the face has a master peg that controls everything connected to the whole grouping. We can clean up this network group by highlighting everything associated to our face, making sure that we have a master peg on top and a master composite at the bottom, like so. So I'm going to highlight it all and hit Control-Shift-G, and that's going to give me a nice, neat little package, face comp group. Next, we're going to look at the head. So the head is set up in the same way. We have basically the hair, which has a lot of cutters, by the way. Let me show you a few. This piece here, which I forgot to name, actually has a moving piece that is being cut by this piece here, the hair. And to show you the drawing, it's this piece that's cutting it. So that's the cutter cutting this hair, and if we parent up, it's going to go straight up to the headmaster, and the head comp master actually controls over here the neck as well. If we go up to the chin, it parents up to there as well, and same for the ears, both ears, and so forth. Now I want to show you something quick with what's called an auto patch. Now this is the auto patch for the chin. If I didn't have the auto patch, the chin will look like that. I can even layer it in front, but I don't want these two nubs sticking into the face. So what I'm doing is I'm throwing the auto patch, which figures out whatever it is in the color art layer, which is the chin. It's separated. It's going to take the color art layer and use that as a mask. So I'm going to slide that in front and see how it masks out the line. However, we still want to see the bottom part of the line show up. So I'm going to find my head, which is here, and I'm going to take a connection from the chin and sandwich it between the head and the auto patch chin. And that'll give us our line there. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you or talk about is that when we have our master peg and our master composite, it's really the only clean way to create a group. But to get that composite, you'll have to find it in the node library here. So you just kind of pull it in. And when you do pull it in, you'll notice that at least for me, it's coming in as a bitmap composite, and I know that because I'll click it here, and it'll say bitmap mode. Whereas this one, if I click it, it's going to say pass-through mode. The main differences between the two is that for the pass-through, it's going to acknowledge each connection point going into it as individual elements. So it's going to honor things like Z depth. Whereas with a composite bitmap, it flattens everything. The main use for this, for the flat bitmap composite, is if you want to treat everything coming into the composite as a single solitary drawing, which works well for things like shadows. If you want to combine multiple shadows and they have alphas, and you want to make sure that they kind of flush into one another. So that's when you would use something like this. But for our cases, for most of it, we're going to be using pass-through composite, which is shaped more like a trapezoid as opposed to the bitmap composite, which is a rectangle. So once we have that, once again, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-G to group it, and now we have our head peg, and we have our face peg, face and head. Next up, we have our torso. Now, as you can see, I've set up the hands and arms in the old-fashioned Flash way, which is to say I've sandwiched the arm to the hand, and I have a bicep as well, which is sandwiched also between the forearm here. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I remove the forearm underlay, I get that break. And the way I've designed this forearm overlay, if you go into my drawing, is essentially this. I've taken the forearm line art and color art, which you can combine into the line art, and I've pasted it into the overlay and erased around it. So that basically gives me that fake cutaway. The only problem is if I were to move this outside, actually, let me hide my underlay here, D to hide. If I move this without my underlay, I get this. But if I activate my underlay, you see the whole hand. And because it's wedged between the bicep, it actually works quite well. And same goes for the hand connection here. Now the hand is a full hand, but as you can see, as I slide it in my cutaway, you can see where that cutaway lies. Okay. The reason why I have it set up like this and that I didn't use a color override or an auto patch is simply because I wanted to do this. I wanted to introduce a Z depth at some point so that he can touch his belly. So I'm going to show you up here in my coordinates, and if you don't have it, you can just pull it up by right clicking and hitting coordinates. I'm going to punch in a Z depth here, and that'll bring his arms up. However, if I set that up with an auto patch or even a color override, it's not going to work. So I'll show you what I mean here. If I have the chin as an auto patch and I actually wanted to move the head on top, which I would never do, but if I did do that, the auto patch no longer works. Let me just reset this. So for the auto patch to work, two things have to happen. You have to have your art separated into a line and a color. The second thing you have to have is that you have to make sure everything associated to that connection is set at 0 Z depth, which is unfortunate for things like this, where we want to bring the arms ahead of the torso, and we want to maintain this cutaway here. Okay, so that's when you would actually use something like the setup we have here. Similarly, color overrides won't work with that as well. So this is why I set it up like this. Okay, there it is. Bicep underneath underlay of a forearm, sandwiching a bicep with another forearm, and the hand is also in between there, sandwiching the forearm and the forearm there. Okay, so let's create a group again. I'm going to highlight all of it and hit Control-Shift-G. That's going to give us an upper torso group. Okay, so the last grouping is this. It's the lower body torso. Now, I've separated the foot to be independent with the shin because I want to be able to move my shin and bend it properly. However, if you don't like this setup, that's fine. We can change that. What you can actually do is experiment with the deformers. So I'll show you what I mean. If you highlight the leg here, I'm going to do it with this leg here. You can actually rig a deformer like so. You can pull and adjust. This is actually a bone deformer, and you can adjust the rotation points so that it's suited for your needs. This is just for the knees over here, and you can just set that. So the way this works is it'll basically swing swing your legs tightly around a designated circumference. Now obviously down here the shoes will be a little bit off, so what you can do is put in a deformation or kinetic output, which is here, and you can wedge that between your shoe and the deformer, and that'll prevent the shoe from going too wonky. It'll still go wonky, I think, but if you just rotate it, it'll stay pretty true. Actually, it holds pretty tight, so the kinetic output works pretty well with that shoe connection there. I'm going to delete this, and I'll show you another deformer. There's also this deformer here. If you go into tool properties, you can actually see three various types of deformer. So I'll show you this one here. This is the curve deformer. So what you do with this is you can click and drag from your start position to the middle, then you find your end position and drag it to the middle, and then you can just set that. And what that does is it gives you more of a rubber hosey feel to your legs, if that's what you choose to do. If you want to introduce a second deformer on the same drawing, or I should say on a new drawing, you have to duplicate your drawing. Then you're going to, here I'll show you here on the shorts, you're going to go to your library, and you can duplicate your drawings by going drawing, duplicate drawing. That'll bring us to drawing number 4. You're going to hit this button here. This is called create new deformation chain. Basically what that does is it's telling the current drawing here to forget about what was just done to the deformer, and let's draw a new one. So for this deformer, I want to change it to a bone deformer. And let me adjust that and set it. So what's cool about this is on drawing number, what is it here? On drawing number 4, I can have a bone deformer, and then if I switch it to drawing number 1, it can be a curved deformer. So you have some flexibilities with that. I don't want any deformers though, so I'm going to actually just delete it. Alright, so that's the setup for the legs. And also here you'll notice I have an auto patch for the shorts, and let's investigate what that does. Okay, so if I zoom in here, you'll see the connection point to the butt fix that I call it. It's just the back butt here. So I'm going to get rid of this cutter to show you what that actually does. So here is the butt. Okay, and this is the shorts, and that's the cutter there. I actually, now that I'm looking at this is kind of redundant. This auto patch actually takes care of the cutter. So watch this. So I can either have the pelvis, or sorry, this is the wrong. Sorry, the auto patch is actually for the shorts here, and the pelvis is what was attached to the cutter. So they do pretty much two separate things. So with the shorts, I have it sandwiched between the pelvis, or sorry, the pelvis is here, and there's the shorts. So I'm going to show you the auto patch first. If I get rid of the auto patch for the shorts, you see it goes behind here. But if I sandwich it in front of the pelvis, like so, it hides the line. So anytime you want to sandwich something together, you got to make sure that let me see here. You got to make sure that in this case here, the butt is sandwiched between the two shorts. So here's the first short connection, here's the second short connection, and the butt fix is back there. Also that the butt fix is currently cutting the pelvis. So if I move the pelvis, or the crotch line, I should call it the crotch line, it actually masks away because of the butt. So these are some of the things that you can play around with when you're constructing your groupings. And it's easier to construct things in groups because it's much less overwhelming. So once I have all this, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-G, and that's going to set it to a group. Now I have everything grouped and organized quite neatly here. The only thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to add, you don't have to do this, but I usually like to add another peg underneath this face master peg. Again, you don't have to, but if you do create a new peg at any point, you can just click the item and then hit Control P. That'll give you a new peg. The only thing is, because it's connected to a multi-port, you actually have to slide it in by holding Alt. Now you want to make sure that all your layer properties is set to separate instead of 3D path. So if you want to do it quickly, just highlight it all and go to this button here to set properties on many layers. So I'm going to click that and hit separate. And I might as well click parent mode while I'm there, simply because I want to be able to set my anchor points like so, and ensure everything is set properly. And I'll set the points like that. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about before we go is how to utilize the last deformer that we have. So I'm going to build you a cape. Nice simple cape, nothing fancy. So actually I'll put the cape behind everything. I'll put it behind the body here. And let's get it a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and let's just use this shoe base here. We'll fill it and adjust it. Now usually I like to have an overlay for the cape, but since this is going to be nice and dirty, I'm just going to keep it simple and hide it behind his back. Okay, so here is the cape. Now I'm going to hide him for a moment and show you this cape. When you're creating a deformer for this, let me just activate it first, and I'll go to my tool properties. You can go to this envelope mode, and this is actually pretty cool. You just have to select it, and then you're going to do tap, 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 and tap. And then you can basically go in closer and adjust. And when you're adjusting these Bezier curves and even points, you want to basically just trace the outline of your object. When you get to the corners, hold Alt so you can just control the one side. You want to make sure you have a nice long Bezier curve that you can play around with. Oh, so this one's backwards. Okay. So again, hold Alt. Oops, I just added an extra point. Just undo. And you can move that over. This last one doesn't really matter. Oops. There. Okay, so we'll set that. And what that's going to allow us to do is to animate, if we should choose to, a more fluid cape. Okay, so you can have it kind of flapping in the wind like that, which is kind of nice. So that's pretty much most of the deformers. So we have the curve deformer, the mesh deformer, and the bone deformer that I've shown you here. So that pretty much does it. Oh, by the way, if you ever want to hide your deformers, just click outwards and then select this button here to show and hide deformers. And if you want to activate all your deformers, you just select the parts with the deformers and you can just activate it. I think like that. Sorry. I don't have a deformer on the legs anymore, do I? No, I don't. Sorry. So it's basically just that. But usually, if you want to select all the deformers, just highlight the whole characters and click that button there. Okay, so that does it for our Franco rig. And I hope this video has been helpful. And if you have any further questions, or if you would actually like to get a hand on this Franco rig, just shoot me a message at contact.animationteacher.com@gmail.com. Sorry, let me just save this. Save and close. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good night.